Hello there, welcome to my new video for Age of Wonders 4. In this one I got tips and tricks for the new tomes of the Empires and Ashes DLC. So the idea of this video is to give you as many ideas and thoughts for these new tomes because I was analyzing them and thinking about what kind of new options do we have that we haven't had before and what kind of old strategies can be amplified with this stuff in there. And I came up with a lot of interesting things, so I want to share. Let's get started. Number one, I want to talk about Miasma. Miasma is a mechanic which is exclusive to the Tome of Alchemy, and you can apply it via two ways. First off, you have the Afflictor unit, which has Miasma Shot, which applies 1 hex of that stuff, and the other spell is a 1 hex radius cloud that you can apply. What's Miasma? Miasma is pretty simple. It applies weakening and affliction, which is a new thing. So affliction is amazing because it makes your damage apply conditions all of a sudden. So I see two big winners of this stuff. First off, of course, the dark faction comes to mind, because weakening is what makes them hit harder, and this is already a nice synergy. So you get extra damage via weakening them, you lower their damage via weakening them as well, of course, which is also a benefit. And the affliction, well, the more different colors of damage you have, the more different afflictions you can do. But one thing that came to me after thinking a little bit harder were the arcane and their astral blades. Hell, every spellcast gives you 3 different types of damage, so all of a sudden you can combine Miasma and arcane attacks. It's insane. You apply so many conditions, combine that with condemnation, which also lowers the enemy's status resistance, spec a little bit harder into lowering the enemy's status resistance as well, and yeah, this is hell of a strategy. With just a tier 1 tome, Miasma is powerful, and I think the Arcane faction might be actually the biggest winner of that, and I'll totally do a build about that in the future. Watch my videos, because I need to do this. Number 2, I want to talk about the economy boosters that you have with these tomes. There's pretty much in every tome one of them. The alchemy tome is pretty heavy in economy. It comes with a material refinery, which is amazing. If you just build it, it's already useful, because any building that provides knowledge and gold is a really solid build, but the more magic materials, the more powerful. I love these. The alchemist's lab is similarly powerful. I love special provinces that just provide knowledge. Many builds lack in knowledge. Every build loves knowledge to get further ahead faster, so good stuff in there. When we head on over to the Constructs tome, we have the Worker Construct Nexus, which is, I think, an amazing thing in itself as well, because for one, it speeds up all your productions, because plus 10 production, and it also amplifies whatever you have already, and this is really cool. If you position it right, these things can be amazingly productive, and it's just something you have by just picking that book. It's also worth noting, because not always do you have them for free. For example, the Alchemy Tome requires you to research those material refineries. Big difference. Dreadnought features the War Foundry, which is really amazing. If you have a militaristic playstyle, you will play a lot with quarries and mines already, and the +1 rank on the units in there, if you have the correct cultural traits, that's the word, you can spit out units which come out with an amazingly high level right from the get-go. Don't underestimate this. If you manage to stack up more of these +1 rank things, they start to matter a lot. So, pretty neat thing, but more of a militaristic style of gameplay. And we don't have any bigger economy boosters, but one thing crossed my mind with the Severing Tome. The spell ward building acts as a free spell jammer that you don't have to buy with gold. Huh, neat, isn't it? So this way you can use mana instead of gold, and I feel like this is also an economy boost, but a very, very minor one. The other tomes perform much better in that regard. With that, I want to go on over to number 3. So I want to talk about the Cascading Command spells, because For me, they took a lot of effort to understand why they are amazing, but it dawned on me. So first of all, I want to explain what they do. So when you cast that on a construct or a linked mind unit, which is a racial transformation, which just gives you that stuff, and then you can act in unison with constructs. So it applies hastening, strengthening, and then it cascades to adjacent friendly constructs, and it repeats. So this spell allows you to do formation buffs that are not in a hex field. It allows you to do formation buffs that go in a line or in a half a circle. And this goes in a offensive way. So this reposition thing, you cast it before you act, you gain fast movement, which is in so far amazing as it tricks the AI. The AI will always consider your unit's movement range. It always tries to stay right out of that. So when you're just at that edge, just slap that on your units and you can totally run into their faces. And it's pretty powerful in that self. And to defend comes with, it's just amazing as well, because you get extra retaliations and everybody goes into defense after that. So you can use that after acting, because nowhere here is stated that the unit in question needs free actions for that. So yeah, these are really powerful because of two reasons. You can amplify your defense and your offense, especially since you can trick the AI with these, and it enables you to do formations that are out of the ordinary. Unlike all other buff spells, this is finally not a hex-shaped spell. This is really amazing. It's the first time that I know of this in Age of Wonders 4, so... Moving on to number 4, something that I like to call Golem combat style. We have new Golem combat style options. First off, we gained the Bronze Golem, which is now the evolution of the Copper Golem. So Copper Golems now evolutionize into Bronze Golems. No longer do we get Iron Golems out of Copper Golems. And therefore, we now have a cleaving spear unit. Alone that is amazing. Cleaving and weakening, so they have a high synergy with Dark. But this is only one tool. Of course, the cascading commands that I explained a minute before are amazing for golems. There comes compounding defense into play. Shield and polearm units, that's all of your golems basically, except for the golden one, gain extra defensive stats if they are standing close to each other. They can now also share hyper awareness to non-construct units, which is also amazing because flanking is a thing. And then comes the Dreadnought Tome and cranks it up to 11. Because first off, we gain once for one a overcharge skill, which allows us to use our supporters to amplify the damage of our constructs massively. Yes, there is a chance to inflict stunning by that, but you can control conditions quite well, especially with the Alchemy Tome. I'm going to talk about that in a hot minute. And yeah, it's really sick steroid that your supporters can just learn. But Warding Metals was for me a real, I don't know, I feel like this is one of the most busted unit enchantments in there. It gives your constructs and shield units warded, which gives them just +3 resistance against magic attacks. This is so powerful out of one simple reason. This was always the one big weakness of golems. They are really strong at physical defense, but weak at magical defense. This was one weakness that went through the entire board here, you see? They always have that slightly lower... that's the wrong one, I'm sorry. Where are you? Here, artificing. They always have a lower magic resistance than a physical resistance. This spell single-handedly eliminates that weakness. And it's already hard to kill golems without that thing. With these new spells, it becomes even harder. They are status immune mostly, and yeah, can have fun with these things. And I really want to point out, as a last thing before we move to the next point, Experienced Warsmith gives your constructs even more physical resistance, but most importantly, regeneration on the world map. This is massive, and it's a novice hero skill, so you don't have to have a high level on your heroes to get that. So yeah, Golems got powered up with this one, and you will really feel the difference with that, and I will feature something, don't you worry. Number 5, I want to talk about condition control. You know, condition control is really cranked up with these tomes. We're going to go over the Severing Tome and the Alchemy Tome, but first over the Alchemy Tome. We get here 3 tools in our hands. First off, Mysterious Tonic, or no, 2 tools, sorry. Mysterious Tonic. So, our supporters gain the ability to remove a negative stat from one unit and give them 2 positive status effects on top of that. This is outright amazing. The only downside are the low range and the cooldown, but all in all, it's really valuable to be able to strip off a nasty debuff from somebody who's important for your strategy. Sometimes it can make all the difference to be able to remove that freeze, that stun, whatever, to move your unit out of the line of fire, whatever. It's a really useful spell, and it comes to at a really cheap price. 0 actions, mind you. Anti-Magic Tincture is the other tool that we got here. It dispels negative status effects on a 1 hex radius, and it even protects you afterwards. This is the counterspell for AoE freezes or AoE immobilizes. It just eliminates that effect, just like that. And it's a powerful tool, because it's a tier 1 tome. If you pick that tome, you have so much control over status effects alone. It's really nice. You don't have to invest much to it, and it's also very low in the casting costs, so yeah. Lots of stuff here that's already good. I want to talk about the Severing Tome, though, because there's also more condition control here available for us. First of all, I want to talk about Null Shield, which is a unit enchantment for your shield units, which just allows your defense mode to crank up the status resistance even further. So this makes your shield units, this turns your shield units into real protectors from any form of status shenanigans, and it's really nice to know that now there might be stupidly powerful status strategies, but there's also Tome of Severing, because we have Null Shield, but there's also the Severing Golem, which features Dispelling Field, which just dispels in a 2 hex radius. It's a point blank AoE. Dispels all the negative status effects and strengthens itself for every dispelled spell, but that's just a side effect. What matters is that you have a point-blank nuke that can stand in the middle of your army and just dispel whatever BS the enemy is tossing at you. This is nice, because these guys are also tier 5 units, so they are really hard to disable due to that. Really good stuff. I love it. So condition control has been never easier, so I really do love these tomes. Number 6, I want to talk about Disruption, a new thing that is entirely unique to this DLC as far as I know, and it is, in short, the ability to disable the unit enchantments on enemy units. And I want to introduce the tools that you got. So first off, Severing is the tome for that mechanic. You have a little bit of that mechanic also in the Dreadnought, but I want to start here because it's just the best way to showcase it. Disrupting Blades is a unit enchantment that gives all of your baseline melee guys the ability to disrupt. And like I explained, Disruption just does what it says on the label. Unit enchantments get disabled. So this makes your melee units a lot more dangerous in the late game. We also have Astral Severance, which inflicts disrupt to magic units, or just outright kills them. But we see here that disruption is outright deadly for any late game effects. We have disruption on the Severing Golem, who will just do that to 3 random enemies, but it's also a nuke, so this is also a way of disrupting the enemy. And like I said, the Dreadnought Tome has this with the Destabilized Mana Core, which offers a 60% chance of disruption on a 2 hex radius. if you pull it off correctly, it is an outright amazing, powerful effect that gives your armies the ability to breach through the most powerful stacked up units in the late game. Disruption is for me pretty useless early on. You shouldn't rush towards it because the enemies and unit enchantments are easy to overcome if you have a powerful strategy early on, but the more time you give the AI, the more stuff it can just pack on its back, and the more useful this gets. I don't know how this will play out in PvP, because I ain't a PvP player. Now, number 7, I want to talk about the new options we got to counter necromancers and summoners, and I really feel bad for the necromancers. They really need a power up soon, but I bet that we'll see a DLC one day that is maybe even completely focused around necromancy. I could imagine something like that, but let's get back to topic. Thomas Severing offers the tools to counter summoning, and it is here in Final Banishment that we can spit into the soup of any necromancer, because we have a burst that just destroys all corpses on the map. Mind you, it's very costly. 50 spell points is a lot, but if you are a magic heavy faction, you can easily stem that, and it's also buffing the hell out of your friendly units, so this spell is also amazing if the enemy does not utilize corpses at all, because it bolsters resistance and it gives you temporary HP, so you can always use that as a burst heal spell too, but that just as a side note. And again, Astral Severance, I already mentioned it regarding its disrupting effect, but it just outright can kill magic origin units, and yeah, the higher the tier, the more juicy the payout, and this is one of the most nasty spells that you have available, and if the enemy's army is focused around some strong magic unit or something like that, you can just assassinate a priority target. And these two tools here are really, really cool. I really do like them a lot, and moving, therefore, because there's not much more to add to it, over to number 8. I want to talk about the massive crowd control synergies that Tome of the Dreadnought offers, because of the destabilized mana core effect. This thing detonates after a turn, so any build that is capable of crowd controlling large amounts of enemies and binding them to a certain area can get a massive payout out of the spell, because the spell itself is ridiculously cheap. I don't know if it'll stay like that. I see a nerf incoming when this gets abused a little bit too much. But either way, this alone is really, really sickly powerful. And we also have the artillerist trait for your heroes on the Dreadnought. I almost overlooked it, but this thing, it marks a 1 hex radius, and it is a really nasty AoE nuke, which you can just slap on top of anybody who is already CC'd. Any form of AoE immobilization gets a huge payoff with that. The Dreadnought Tome, it's just 2 tools that offer this, but they are, in my book, among the most powerful things that we have in terms of slightly time-delayed damage. So we also have a spell that allows us to immobilize in a stupidly high radius, but you cannot cast 2 spells without using a Mage King. But Mage Kings can combine Pinning Barrage and Mana Core for even more stupid shenanigans. But either way, I wanted to point out the real big payoff that you get from the Mana Core if you use CC and the Artillerist, because yeah, it's an expert hero skill, but at the same time I feel like it's really, really powerful, because it's low action points. You can just move up, flick it down, mark people, Reaver faction says hi, and yeah, it's pretty, pretty cool. Now, moving on over to number 9, I noticed that there are also a lot of nice sieging extras in this tome line. So first of all, let's go on over the most obvious things, like fumigation. Sure, it's a siege project that just applies flat out a nice amount of damage on the enemies. Siege projects, costly, I rarely use them, but this is a nice thing to talk about. But actually, I meant to talk about the Miasma, because Miasma in itself does not necessarily do any damage, but it helps your sieges insofar as you just slap it onto a cluster, and most of the time during sieges the enemy will clump up, defend, and just be very resilient. But with Affliction, even low amounts of damage can put a nasty damage over time effect on the enemy, or any other useful thing that can happen. And this way, you can do a lot of damage just by putting down Miasma and flicking down low damage AoEs. So it powers up the entirety of your, well, failed strategy, so to say. That's one thing. But actually, and of course, that's pretty naturally, the Dreadnought Tome is much better in that regard. First of all, let's talk about the Great Bombard. The Great Bombard is much more insane than I thought. So you get one when you start the battle, and this real neat little thing allows you to deal damage in a 1 hex radius, demolish fortified obstacles, and it's just one hell of an AoE nuke that you get available just by having that. Yes, it's costly and all, but it also deals 5 fortification damage, therefore it speeds up your sieging process by a lot, and it makes killing off stuff inside the city walls so much easier. It's really, really powerful. And of course, we got the Ironclad, which is also equally good at demolishing fortified obstacles, and Barrage spell, again, 1 hex radius, different kinds of ammunitions which inflict again status effects and such things, set the ground on fire, so it's also a really good sieging unit. So we got a lot of options to hurt enemies that try to hide behind walls with this tome set, and I really do like it. It adds in a lot of new options that we haven't had before, and I want to mention that also the destabilized mana core is a massively nice option for siege things, because enemy has either the option to run into your faces or hide behind the walls and get exploded. So really good things. I really appreciated these. And on my last point, I want to point out how much ranged synergy these tomes offer, and how much ranged options we got extra. This entire tome line of Empires and Ashes offers so much ranged upgrading or ranged options. We got the Afflictor unit, which is in itself already really powerful as a simple ranged unit. Triple strike options. It comes as a tier 1 available. The Miasma shot is a nice burst that just needs 1 action point. Here we have already a strong ranged attacker. Miasma goes really well with ranged attackers. It's one mechanic that synergizes into any ranged strategy, because all ranged builds that I ever made used unit enchantments that gave me some sort of elemental damage. So high synergy here already again. But even the Tome of the Construct plays into this scheme, because in a certain way you could say that every ranged strategy needs massive frontline, and Construct offers massive frontline. These guys can cleave and defend. We got Iron Golems from more baseline vanilla tomes. We got Cascading Command. We got massive upgrades for the defensive options for our golems. So a ranged slash golem strategy comes to mind that easily. So here again, even the Construct tome offers some sort of a advantage here that is not that obvious in some way. And Dreadnought offers the Ironclad, which is already one hell of a ranged unit, and we also have Pinning Barrage, which is, again, a massive steroid for any ranged strategy, because we have a 2-hex radius immobilizing spell. Yeah, it's a bit costly on the mana side and on the battle spell cost side, but often it makes all the difference who can move and who cannot move, and especially with ranged strategies. So here we have another tool that just plays into the hands of any ranged strategy. And the Tome of Severing, well, there is only one guy here that really acts as a ranged attacker, but the Severing Golem comes here into play again, and he has a lot of nice ways of keeping your army safe, but he's not really in that topic. I think Dreadnought, Construct, and Alchemy play a much bigger role in the ranged options that we get with these new tomes. Severing is much more about spitting into the enemy's soup when he's relying too much on unit enchantments, so yeah. There's surely much, much more in these tomes, but I really wanted to do with this video a overview about the new options that we got. I really am looking forward to your comments. Maybe you found out something that I overlooked in my first analysis. I'm pretty sure you did. And yeah, tell me all about it. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and check out that description box. It's full with links to other Age of Wonders things, and there's also Patreon, PayPal, and Buy Me a Coffee, and I'd really be happy if you'd gave them a look. I want to thank all the supporters of this channel. I really, really rely on you guys and appreciate. And last but not least, I want to thank everybody who has been watching this video up until this point. That is one really, really big thing for me, especially all you who bear through this annoying ads that I have to do at the end of each video. Either way, thanks for being around. Have fun with that, and I'll be coming back with some nice builds soon. See you there.